All right, welcome guys. I'm very excited for today. Thank you for coming out and thank you for attending the live stream if you're on the live stream right now. Today's presentation is going to be surrounding the fundamentals of nutrition. So fueling your fitness goals. If you don't know me already, my name is Parris and I'm going to give you a little bit more of my backstory just so you know a bit about me. If you're in person right now, you'll recognize the gym that we're in. We're at Meraki in Oakville, Ontario. So a little bit about my journey. I actually started coaching when I was 17 years old. So from a young age, I've been pretty passionate about coaching. I did my first men's physique competition when I was 19. And then soon after that, I actually founded Truth Body Systems, which is the coaching company that we have now. I actually spent 2 years in the pharmaceutical industry after my undergrad, and then I took on the business full-time after that. So I've been doing this full-time for 2 years, but I've been coaching for a very long time. That's kind of my passion. Before we hop into the content, I want to walk you guys a little bit through what Truth Body Systems is all about. So we're primarily an online coaching company, and our goal is to put a focus on evidence-based strategies and make them feel approachable and also accessible. So when I say we, it's my sister and I, so Courtney, who's also a coach at our company. We like to prioritize personalization and individualization. So we don't do any cookie cutter BS. We like to look at the person as a whole and make a plan that's going to fit with them. And we also believe that a true transformation is not only with your body, but also with your mindset as well and how you approach your life. And that leads me into the 3 pillars, which are science, sustainability, and success. We think if you have a sound scientific plan, you combine it with something that's going to be sustainable for who you are based on your preferences and lifestyle, you're ultimately going to be successful. So that's a little bit of a backstory about the company. And now let's hop into a little bit of the current state of the industry. So this might be a little bit relatable for you guys. There's an overwhelming amount of information out there, right? So the people I talk to are often confused of exactly what they should be doing with their nutrition because you're hearing low fat, high fat, no carbs, yes, you should eat carbs, fruits are bad for you, you should only eat meat only with a carnivore diet. Like there's a billion different inputs that you're hearing, and it's tough to separate the useless from the useful, right? We also have a key emphasis on supplements and fads. Fat loss supplements, we got fad diets with names on them, so it's really hard to know exactly, again, what you should actually be doing. And lastly, we're marketing towards the speed of results, right? So people think, okay, I'm going to tell the people that want to get in shape that they can get results in 8 weeks because that's what's marketable. So we have a fitness industry is filled with just the speed of how fast we can do everything. So in result, we got nutrition marketing and a real lack of practical and sustainable methods, and we get visible confusion from everybody. If you like Star Wars, this will make sense. If not, that won't make sense, but you can still appreciate my point. Okay, so goals for today, very important. We're going to filter through the noise. So we're going to prioritize what actually matters with your nutrition. Secondly, we're going to do an intro to calories and the concept of energy balance or calorie balance. And then we're also going to talk about macronutrients, so protein, carbs, and fats, very important stuff. And then number 4, the truth behind some common nutrition myths. So we're going to do a little bit of myth busting. And then I'm going to open up to Q&A. So if you are on the live stream, you can just type it in the chat, your questions, and then we're going to have somebody read it out to me over here so we can answer your questions. All right? So if you can hold all questions to the end, and then we'll go through it there. All right, so what I like to say is there's a little bit of a hierarchy in terms of what actually matters with your nutrition, right? Because we hear all these different inputs that we're getting, and it's tough to separate, okay, what should it be at the top of our list with what should be at more at the bottom. So we actually have a little bit of a hierarchy in regards to nutrition. We call it the target of truth. I wrote a book based on the premise of this target. And if you see here, the importance of what we talk about decreases as you go to the outer portions of the rings. So in the middle, we have energy balance or calorie balance. Then it goes macronutrients, and then it continues after that. We're primarily going to focus on energy balance as well as macronutrients for the purpose of this presentation because with anything in life, there's always a few key principles that kind of guide progress, right? So fitness is no different. So we're going to focus on those today. And we're also going to go over a little bit of lifestyle and preference here as well because we think you can't shoot your shot until you have those covered. And that's why we put them at the arrow. You cannot get, you can't hit the target without an arrow. So we think very important that we talk about lifestyle and preference as well. So, intro to calories. So what are calories? We talk about calories, how many calories are in this, how many calories are in that, but what do they actually mean? Well, it's just simply a unit of measurement, and we're measuring energy in this case, right? So 1 calorie just means the amount of energy needed to raise a kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius. And we consume calories through food. That's the only way you can get them. You can't get calories by sniffing a donut or your arm rubs past some peanut butter. That doesn't happen. It has to be ingested to count. Well, to count, right? So why do they matter? Our bodies cannot operate without them. Every single thing that you do requires energy, and the energy currency of our body is essentially can be dumbed down to calories, right? So essentially, in basic terms, function and movement, so any sort of bodily function as well as any sort of movement you're doing, even me moving my hands around requires energy, and that stems from calories at the most basic form and would be technically burning calories as well, right? So how do we evaluate calories burned? We know that, okay, when we exercise, we burn calories. We do cardio, we go on walks, it burns calories. But I think we need to break it down a few steps further than that, and that's what brings me to the point of total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE for short. So there's 4 different components, and I'm going to hop briefly into each of them. The first one, basal metabolic rate, I just call this keeping the lights on. So if you were lying down in your bed, didn't do anything all day, and you just had your heart pumping and your respiratory rate going, that would be your basal metabolic rate. So your body requires a lot of energy at rest. Next, we have non-exercise activity. This would include things like fidgeting, doing the laundry, doing the dishes, anything that's not planned exercise. Then we do have exercise activity, of course, so planned weight training sessions, going on a run, doing whatever boot camp classes like they're doing over there right now. That would all count under exercise activity. And then lastly, this is probably one that you might not have heard of before. It's the thermic effect of food. So what this is there's an energy cost to actually absorbing and digesting your food. So in order for us to get energy derived from our food, we actually have to expend a little bit of energy. So usually roughly 5 to 10% of your total daily energy expenditure actually comes from just absorbing and digesting your food. So I'm going to ask people in the audience that are here, which one of these do you think is responsible for the greatest energy output in a given day? People that have background in this are not allowed to answer. Anybody? Third one? So that would be, let's go back. So that would be exercise activity. That would be the very logical answer, but it's actually basal metabolic rate. So we usually think, okay, if I want to expend a lot of calories, I got to go do exercise or whatever, but this counts for roughly 60% of your daily energy expenditure. So pretty crazy if you think about it. Just keeping the lights on requires a ton of energy. The main factor that would influence basal metabolic rate would actually be your body weight. So the higher your body weight, the greater calories at rest that you would burn. Obviously more muscle mass, it's going to boost that too. This is just an example of one of our clients, Kaylee. I'm going to bring up some real-life applications of the concepts we talked about. She had a history of underfueling and following more cookie-cutter plans. And the only thing we really did was establish consistent eating patterns. So we were eating enough and regularly training, and you can see some changes in her body just from a short period of time doing that. So it was really understanding the role of calories and fueling for performance, not only her life and also her training. And that's what we call body recomposition. We weren't going for aggressive fat loss or muscle gain. It was just kind of to kind of make things go steady. So we talked about what are calories and why they're a little bit important here, or a lot of bit important. Next, I want to talk about calorie balance or energy balance. So 3 key terms. If you can understand these 3 terms, you're going to have a really good grasp on the direction of your fitness journey, okay, in terms of developing your body. So first is maintenance calories. The second would be a calorie surplus, and the last is going to be a calorie deficit. These are 3 mutually exclusive states. You can't be in more than one of them at the same time. So first is maintenance. This would represent when we eat the exact, or roughly the exact amount of calories that our body requires on a daily basis. So the calories that we are ingesting are relatively equal to the calories that we're expending, and we're going to maintain our body weight if that happens. For calorie surplus, this would be synonymous with weight gain. So this is when our intake exceeds that we are expending. So calories in more than calories out. And then calorie deficit, this would be synonymous with weight loss. So when we consistently eat less than our body requires, so we're burning more on a daily basis than we are intaking over a consistent period of time, is going to lead to weight loss. And I'll say this, and it's a very important point, you cannot lose weight without a consistent calorie deficit. Very important. You cannot lose weight without a consistent calorie deficit. Doesn't matter how much cardio you're doing, whatever, you have to be in a calorie deficit over an extended period of time for weight loss to occur. Okay? So if you want to bring out your calculators right now, you can do a very, very simple calculation. This is the easiest way to calculate calories. We made a nice little chart here. All you're going to do is you're going to take your body weight in pounds and multiply it by the relevant multiplier. So you have down here, we have your level of expenditure, and then if your goal is weight loss, maintenance, or weight gain here. So as an example, let's say you're a 180-pound person and you wanted to lose weight and you're sedentary, you would start by eating roughly 1,800 to 2,160 calories per day to lose weight. And the calculation was just 180 times 10 to 12. Pretty simple. So this is just a starting estimate because everybody's always wondering how many calories should I eat for my goal. This is a simple starting point. This is an example of a real life application of calorie surplus for muscle gain. So this is our client Steve, who might even be watching at home right now. What we did was we set his calories slightly above maintenance. We focused on progressive training over time and real emphasis on performance in the gym. You multiply that over a few training blocks and you got a pretty a dense back going on, right? And this is Steve, who's also a dad, so managing dad life as well. This would be an example of calorie deficit for fat loss. So this client often was struggling with her weight for a very long time. She was thinking she was eating healthy, but when we quantified things and made it a sustainable program that involved a calorie deficit that she could stick to over a certain period of time, then the weight started just melting off. I think we're still working together right now, but I think this was roughly 25 pounds down in comparing these photos. So simple, establish a calorie deficit over a consistent period of time, one that you can stick to, and that's going to ultimately lead to success. So you might be thinking, okay, Parris, you're making this all sound very simple. If it's just a matter of calories in, calories out, why the heck is weight loss so hard, or why the heck is fat loss so hard, right? So I'm going to give you a few different reasons. The first one would be hunger hormones, obviously. So we have two main ones that I want to talk about that are relevant. The first one would be leptin. This is more over a longer time period, so it senses longer term changes. You can kind of think of it as your thermostat, Your body's kind of thermostat for that. It detects when we get too lean or our food is too low, and it's going to spike your appetite. And it actually also will slow down subconscious movement, whether you realize it or not. If you've ever seen somebody that's way too lean or has been dieting for too long, they do everything a little bit slower. Maybe they fidget less. Maybe they're doing less steps per day. Your body tends to slow you down a little bit. Ghrelin, this would detect shorter term changes in energy availability. So it would spike in between meals to make you hungry. So you know when you're like, oh, I woke up and I was a little bit hungry, because ghrelin is a little bit higher. So very important things to think about. Your body is smart, right? So when dieting, we experience a decrease in leptin, which promotes hunger, and also an increase in ghrelin. So although they have opposing arrows, they both lead to higher hunger at the end of the day, which means that you're more likely to overconsume calories and take you out of a calorie deficit. You might have also heard, okay, I can damage my metabolism, or you know what, years of yo-yo dieting has damaged my metabolism. That's kind of been debunked now. I think the term that's been kind of widely accepted, it was introduced by a very smart guy named Lane Norden, but it's called metabolic adaptation. So our metabolic rate can adapt, right? It can slow down or speed up depending on what we give it. So when we eat less then we're burning for a consistent period of time, our metabolic rate will slow down. Our body ends up essentially becoming efficient, meaning that everything it does requires less energy to do it. And the opposite side of the spectrum, when we start eating more, our metabolic rate actually speeds up. The third thing, so we're talking about why weight loss is hard. This is probably the main reason why, if any of you have stuck to calorie restriction over a certain period of time or tried any sort of regimented diet, would be lifestyle considerations, right? We live in a world that's abundant with not only advertising towards food, but also food in general. You cannot walk down the street without being advertised and smelling pizza, donuts, easily accessible food. Also in social gatherings, you know, you go to your friend's house, what do? They offer you a beer. Nobody's offering you to go hit a workout and have a protein shake after. Unless you come to my house, then it might be a little bit different. But most of the time, they're offering you a drink and some snacks, right? So that's a big one. The last one is we live relatively sedentary, high-stress lifestyles. We know stress is kind of counterproductive for physique-related goals, but also you're going to work, you sit down all day at your computer, you come home, you're stressed out, you go to bed, rinse and repeat, and you combine the top 2 factors with the last one over months and over the years, and what do you know? Weight gain comes pretty easy, right? I like to use this analogy. Your body is like an elastic band. The quicker and faster you stretch it, the more it's going to snap back to its original state. So if you've ever tried decreasing your calories very drastically and upping the cardio all at once, yes, you might make a lot of progress pretty quickly, but then you're stretching the band really quickly and really fast and aggressively. It's going to want to snap back, and that's why a lot of people have issues with rebounding post-diet and having a tough time maintaining the results, which is why we put a key emphasis on sustainability. It's a good example of somebody who locked in their lifestyle strategies. This is our awesome client, Rafa, who had a previous history of kind of doing that elastic band type approach. But this time we said, okay, this time we're going to do it properly. We're going to take it in a more sustainable manner. We're going to focus on lifting. We're going to focus on having a step count and make it in a way that's routine oriented and in a way that fits his lifestyle. He has kids, he has a family life, he has a job, so we had to make it in a way that created a predictable routine and sustainable method so that we could do this over the course of multiple months. So that is a lot on calories, energy balance. So it's really important in this case that we also need to introduce macronutrients. So I'm going to talk about all 3 of them, protein, fats, and carbs. But first, what are macronutrients? Macronutrients are the nutrients our bodies require in larger quantities, hence the word macro. They are essentially the dietary inputs that compose the calories in our diet. So we get calories from macros. Okay? The first one is protein. This has 4 calories per gram. And when I say 4 calories per gram, I don't mean 4 calories per gram of chicken or protein source. I mean 4 calories per gram of actual protein. The main role in this is building and reparation. Very important for muscle growth as well as muscle maintenance. It's also the most satiating muscle group, so you'll find after a protein meal, it is very filling. And it's also an essential structural component of our body as well. So it's not just stuff for our fitness journey, it's also everything in your body is essentially made from protein. Next, fats. These are 9 calories per gram, so a little bit more dense in calories. This, you can say, as a general kind of summary, is good for hormonal health and also satiety. So all of our sex hormones like testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, are to make them, we need fats. So in order to synthesize those, very important, we need to have adequate fats in our diet. It also slows down digestion in between meals, so it makes you feel full for longer. So if you ever had a higher fat meal, you're going to feel fuller for a longer period of time, and it makes things taste better. So I know my grandma loves to put butter and oil into everything, which is why it tastes so good, but it also adds a lot of fat, right? So that, we went over protein and fat so far. Third, carbohydrates, also 4 calories per gram, just like protein. You can think of this as energy and fuel. So it's a primary fuel source for exercise, especially high-intensity exercise such as weightlifting, sprinting, that kind of stuff. And it is also the primary fuel source for your brain. So you ever like have a little bit of brain fog, and then maybe you have like an apple or a snack, and then all of a sudden like you're kind of back to normal? That is because of that. The brain requires more glucose than any other area of our body to function. It requires tons on a daily basis. And lastly, also mood regulation. So serotonin is a neurotransmitter in our brain that promotes feeling of well-being and also relaxation. So another example, you know, if you ever tried like a really low carbohydrate diet and you're feeling crabby and kind of like, a little bit edgy, and then you have like a big bowl of rice, and then all of a sudden there's like a light switch and all of a sudden you're like a whole different person, that would be most likely because of the reasoning there. So fourth, not really a macro. Some people would consider a macronutrient. I know this is, out of the crowd, there's at least a couple people who this is their favorite macronutrient. 7 calories per gram. So we need to think that, we need to realize that when we ingest alcohol, usually there's the alcohol, calories themselves, and then also carbohydrates along with that, right? So beer would have carbs, but it also has alcohol, which in itself has calories. There's not really that much detriment to moderate use in terms of your fitness goals. However, with excessive intake, it does start to have some negative effects. Like I said, the stress hormone cortisol goes up. Our REM sleep is actually decreased with excessive alcohol intake, and then it can also decrease your testosterone. And that's only in excess. Again, 1 to 2 drinks, not really going to do it. It's more of binge drinking, although fun does have repercussions. Okay, so all fine and dandy that we have these 3 macros, but how do we even get them into our bodies? Well, we created this cool Venn diagram here, which categorizes different foods into, protein, carbs, fats, and a mixture of them. So if you're on the live stream, you can take a screenshot of this one. This is a good one. This is a really good one. So if you're low on any of them, then you can just choose. Also, if you're, we did a quick calorie calculation, but if you want to know specifically what your macronutrients should be, we do have a free calculator on our website to give you an idea of what you should be eating in terms of your protein, carbs, and fat targets per day. So this is a good example of taking a macronutrient-based approach. This is our client Rachel, who crushed it and is still crushing it. She had a history of overemphasizing cardio and more like cookie cutter meal plans that really didn't teach her about macronutrients. But what we did, we found a flexible macronutrient-based approach that worked with her lifestyle again. And the flexibility with the macros allowed her to incorporate this into her lifestyle versus her being on plan and following the meal plan, or off plan and not being on the meal plan, right? Instead of having that kind of binary on or off, it was more like a gradient of how good the day was based on how her nutrition went. So another real life application. Okay. Now I'm going to open up to some true and false. So we're going to do a little bit of myth busting. The first question: cardio burns fat. Hands up if we think this is true. Hands up if we think this is false. Okay, this one is actually false. So cardio burns calories but not body fat. So cardio is simply a way of expending energy or a way of expending calories. However, if you're still ingesting more than you are burning on a daily or ongoing basis, you're not going to burn any body fat, right? So it burns calories but not fat. You can do all the cardio you want in the world, but if you're not in a calorie deficit, you will not lose body fat or not lose weight. Next one: you need to eat 6 meals a day to keep your metabolism firing. Do you think it's true? Do you think it's false? Okay, more false. False. So meal frequency actually has a negligible effect on metabolic rate. What matters is your total daily intake. And that's when personal preference comes in key. If you're somebody who likes to have 4 meals a day, eat 4 meals a day. If you like having 6, have 6. If you like having 2, have 2. It really makes a negligible difference in the overall, in your metabolic rate. It's more about the total daily calories for the whole day. Next one: eating late at night causes weight gain. Do you think it's true? Think it's false? You guys are catching along well here. So the timing at which we eat has also a negligible effect on fat gain. Once again, total calories consumed is paramount. But then the next point I'm going to say is important, so listen closely. The reason why you feel like, okay, I've been snacking late at night and that's why I gained weight is not because of the time at which you had those snacks. It's because it's in excess on top of what you've had for the rest of the day. So it's not, okay, I've been eating past 8 p.m., so the carbs are going directly to fat stores. It's not how it works like that, right? It's the fact that you had what you had during the day, and then you had calories on top of that as a snack, and now you're in a calorie surplus. You do that times 7 days a week, boom, weight gain, calorie surplus, right? What about this? Eating specific foods can cause weight gain. True? False? It is false. Tricking you guys here. No specific food is inherently good or bad, and certain foods might have more nutrients, some might have less, some might have more calories, some might have less. But we need to understand how they fit into the bigger picture, right? You could eat Twinkies every single day and still get very, very lean. There's actually been people who have done that, although you probably want more nutrients than that. It can be done, but again, it's all about calories in, calories out at the end of the day. So yeah. What about this? You can lose weight while eating your favorite foods. Hands up is true. Hands up is false. Okay, so yes, this is true. A sustainable diet is obviously something that you want to enjoy, right? As long as your total daily calories are in check, fat loss is achievable. So again, we like to use 80-20 guideline for our clients, and I use it myself personally most of the time. And that is, if you have 80% of your diet coming from nutrient-dense foods, so ones that you would think of as quote-unquote healthy or minimally processed, the extra 20% can be filled in with more fun foods, processed foods, whatever you like, right? And the cool thing is, as your calories get higher or lower, because it's percentage-based, it adjusts accordingly, right? if you have more calories, that 20% is a larger sum of calories, and vice versa if you're eating less calories. So just be mindful and aware that even if you want to fit in your favorite foods, still need fruits, vegetables, fiber for overall health, right? Okay, I'm going to open up to question and answer. I know there's a little bit of a delay on the live stream, so I'm going to give a little bit of extra time to ask some questions. But does anybody in the live audience have any questions? Okay, go for it.
Rather work out in the morning or in the evening?
It's a good question. I would say most important thing is what you can stick to. I think adherence over everything with most things in your fitness journey. If it's easier for you to work out in the morning, work out in the morning. If it's easier for you to work out in the evening, work out in the evening. From a progress perspective, it's going to make, again, negligible difference because your body will get used to whatever time you work out at, right? So if you're used to working out in the evening and then you switch to mornings, might take you a few sessions to get in the groove, but then that will become your new normal. So whatever you can stick to based on preference is probably the most important. How do you know how many calories you're burning per day? So tough question. There are like calorie trackers. You can get some watches and different things like that, but most of them are pretty inaccurate. It's very hard to actually estimate or like precisely estimate how many calories you're burning on a daily basis unless you're in a laboratory setting. So most likely the best way to do this is you start eating at a certain calorie level, and then based on how your weight fluctuates over time, you can see if you're in a calorie surplus, maintenance, or a deficit. So if you're losing weight consistently at a certain amount of calories, then probably in a calorie deficit. And if you're maintaining, probably somewhere around your maintenance. And if you're gaining, you're probably in a surplus over time, right? So you can kind of just put it into practice, run with it, and then see how you respond. Any other?
We have a question from the live stream.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate between sedentary and moderately active?
That's a good question. It's a really good question. Although you might think it's how many times you go to the gym per week, I would actually say it's more your daily lifestyle and maybe potentially even your occupation. So I would classify somebody, even if you work an office job and go to the gym 4 times a week, I would still classify you as sedentary. However, let's say you're working as a construction worker, I would put you more as the more moderately active or active, right? So if you're a waitress, waiter, probably more active, moderately active. And if you work at office job or work from home, then you're probably going to be in that sedentary category. So even if you're working out regularly. So that's a good question. Good question.
If someone was thinking about starting their fitness journey, what would be 3 mindset tips?
Oh, 3 mindset tips for somebody starting their fitness journey? That's a good one. That's a really good one. Mindset tips. So I would say you have to get over the fear of just starting and diving into this, because I think a lot of people just keep delaying starting for whatever reason you have. Oh, things are getting busy, work stressful, I have this coming up, I got a wedding, I got a vacation. It's like there's always going to be something in your life. Like life doesn't stop just because, life's just going to stop because you're going to try to get in shape. It doesn't really work like that. So I think it's just taking action is the biggest one, and just starting. The second is being open to learning your body with a feeling of patience. So it's going to take some time to learn how your body works. Just like, okay, what calorie level for you is maintenance, surplus, or deficit? I know very exactly pretty much how to do that with my body because I've done it a bunch of times. But it's going to take some time to learn your body and also learn what exercises work well for you, what volume of training, those type of things. So be ready to have patience and learn your body. The third mindset tip I would say is really put a focus, just like I was saying for Rafa's picture, on progress and not perfection, because we have to be process oriented. So focus on, did I check my boxes today, rather than am I making progress today? Because if you check the right boxes, you're going to make progress over an extended period of time. So be process oriented. Say, okay, did I do what I said I need to do according to the game plan I have, versus looking in the mirror every 5 seconds to see if you have abs yet. We've all done that, me included. Any other? You start plateauing. I would say that one is a good one. Pretty context dependent, I would say. I would say always check adherence first, because like the first thing, whenever we have a client that hits a plateau, first make sure that it's actually a plateau. So I would say 2 weeks or more to be considered a plateau. Let's talk more about like fat loss specifically. The second would be go back and look at your adherence. Would you rate yourself more than 80% on adherence or less? If you're less, keep going with the game plan and just try to increase adherence. If you are adhering and you're still hitting a plateau, it really would be probably, again, from a fat loss perspective, you might need to make a calorie adjustment, or sometimes you might even need to take a break. Sometimes we'll run like 2 to 4 week diet breaks with clients that have been dieting for a long time when they hit a plateau, and then when we go back to dieting after, bringing them up for maintenance at a certain period of time, then things start rolling again. So that one's tougher for me to give like a specific answer, but yeah, I hope that makes sense.
When do you know you're overtraining?
When do you know you're overtraining? That's a good one. Probably when your recovery markers are telling you so. Like if you're constantly lethargic or fatigued, that's a big one. So like how you feel throughout your day. The second would be your sleep quality. If your sleep quality goes down considerably, you're probably could be in an overtrained state, or your body's just in an overstressed state. And then another one is, or I have another two actually, these are important. First one, motivation to train. If you're really excited to go to the gym, you're probably ready to go. If you're every single day, you're like, I feel like I don't even want to go to the gym, you might be overtrained. And then the last one is performance. If your performance is going back down or maintaining for an extended period of time, you might be at a position of being overtrained, because we want to be progressing over time and we don't want to be going backwards. Probably means that you're overdoing it. Yeah.
How do salts and sugars affect your training performance?
Yeah, that's a good question. So salt or sodium, some people avoid this, but I'm going to say don't, especially if you are exercising, because it's an electrolyte, right? And it plays a really key role in muscle contraction. So if you want to have like good blood flow at the gym, good muscle contractions at the gym, and also like what we call like the pump, when when your muscles get inflated with blood, sodium plays a pretty big role. So very important from that perspective. As long as you're relatively consistent with your sodium intake, I don't think from a health perspective you need to worry about it. Unless you have issues with blood pressure already, then you can consider it. But if you're an average healthy person and you drink enough water and you keep your sodium intake relatively consistent, don't need to worry about it. From a sugar intake, I would say excessive sugar from a health perspective, maybe not like completely ideal. Like you don't want 80% of your carbs coming from sugar. But in all other contexts, it's just the most basic unit of a carbohydrate, right? Broken down to its most simplest form. It's just faster digesting. So I would say, yeah, no real detriment, if that makes sense. Have some live stream stuff.
How do you feel about adding various supplements into your daily routine?
Yeah, so I'm not a huge proponent of a lot of supplements. I think there's only 2 real supplements that have been researched to prove an effect again and again in the literature, and that would actually be caffeine and creatine monohydrate. So caffeine taken, I think it was 30 to 90 minutes pre-training, has been shown to improve performance in a statistically significant way. And then creatine monohydrate, 3 to 5 grams per day, same thing, a statistically significant improvement in performance, mostly for explosive bouts of exercise. Other than that, things like BCAAs, EAAs, pretty much any other supplement, I would say you're better spending your money on better gym equipment, coaches, groceries, better groceries, to be honest. Yeah. Unless you have a deficiency, like let's say you go and you get your blood work done, you have a deficiency in vitamin D, whatever, then supplement. Yeah. Yeah.
How realistic do you think it is for someone with like a really demanding full-time job, maybe young children, or even somebody who travels a lot, to be tracking their macros and planning their meals that way?
Yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, it's a really good question. Obviously we've had quite a number of clients who would fall into that category. I think you just have to set your expectations relative to how much, excuse my language, but how much shit you have going on in life, right? Obviously, if I'm a single guy, 25, who, if I can not have a stressful life, that's gonna be a lot easier than a stay-at-home mom who's also trying to work part-time and support. Maybe she's a single mom and has like 3 kids, whatever. It's gonna be a lot more challenging for her, right? So I think you need to meet yourself where you're at, and that should all start from your game plan. Like your game plan should be made for you and the lifestyle that you have. So obviously the expectation is going to be a little bit less precise for that stay-at-home mom compared to somebody that I just described previously, right? So I think just have your expectations in a right place for you. Yeah.
How do you get started doing a game plan?
How do you get started doing a game plan? Well, we know that we need to be training 3 to 5 times a week. We know that we need to have some sort of nutritional structure. So I say start simple and then work up from there. Obviously, all we do all day long is help people reach their goals. So we're always open to helping. But I think start small, take action based on the principles that you know are going to have the biggest impact, like some of the ones that we talked about today, and just start running with it. And then you can always add to it after. But start with the framework and then slowly build on it. Good.
That's very helpful.
I'm glad you found it helpful. Any other comments, questions, concerns on the live stream? We're good? Awesome, guys. Good questions. So this brings me to one of our last slides here. 3 times a year, we run a 90 days transformation program. So of course we have our usual one-on-one coaching option, and then 3 times a year we have our 90 days of truth. This one is 3-month transformation program designed to equip you with skills, strategies to drive results, obviously taking your lifestyle into account. So this differs from our traditional one-on-one coaching option because it actually ends in a team photo shoot, and there's a bit more of a team atmosphere. So it's a lot of fun, to be honest. And our next one launches May 8th. And for everybody that's attending today, we're going to give a 10% discount for the next one. So we usually take a maximum of 5 people in 3 times a year, and lots of fun. Obviously, you can see some smiling faces there. We've done this a few times already, and yeah, probably some of my favorite moments of the year, to be honest. And I want to say a big thank you not only to Meraki for helping partner for this event. I also want to say a big thank you to Alex Perro, who's behind the camera, who did an amazing job today setting up the quality for the live stream. I also want to thank Courtney, who doesn't get enough credit because usually you guys see my face, but Courtney does a lot of back-end stuff with marketing as well as helping put together the presentation. Anything that looks pretty on the digital landscape, I probably did not do it. So she helps with that and keeping my head on straight. And then, of course, friends, family, and my partner for being super supportive. So I want to say a big thank you for all you guys and anybody who came out tonight. These are the places that you can find us. So website, truthbodysystems.com. Instagram, we're most active on Instagram. You can follow myself or our business page. We're also on YouTube. We're on Facebook. And we did recently start a Truth Talks, which is a podcast going over our client stories, so we should be posting more of there soon. But yeah, this was an absolute pleasure, guys. I hope there was some value in this presentation. I hope you learned at least 1 or 2 things, and I appreciate you listening to me. This is obviously my passion, and this is what I do all day, every day, 24/7, pretty much. And so I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to share. Thank you very much. All right. We're good? Right on.